Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We're going to call the meeting to order. And we've started a new tradition that I think is a great one. First, we're going to start our Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to be led by Ann Randall Bryant.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. Alderman Harris, could you lead us in our invocation?
Let's pray, please. Dear Lord, we come to give you thanks for our many blessings. We thank you, Lord, for our city and the quality of life that you give us here. We pray, Lord, that you lead us through our meeting tonight, that you lead us in all decisions and all discussions that we have and make. We pray, Lord, that you have us to be faithful in all that we do, that we trust in you in all that we do. We pray, Lord, that you look over our military, our police, fire, and first responders. Keep them safe from harm, Lord, as they work to protect us. Forgive us our sins. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Could I have a motion to approve our agenda?
I'd like to make one change to the agenda. I'd like to move item I out of the consent agenda to the last item on the docket, on a claim.
All right. You want to move that to the last item on the agenda?
Yes, sir. That's what I meant to say.
There's a motion to amend and approve the agenda. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item I has been removed from the consent agenda. It will be the last agenda item that we address before we go into executive session. Can I have a motion to approve the docket of claims?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion passes. Next is to approve the minutes from the July 6, 2021 meeting of the Mayor and Board.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve those minutes as written. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is the consent agenda minus item I.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next will be the discussion to authorize me to sign the lease renewal with the Desoto Arts Council on the old City Hall building located at 2465 Highway 51 South. I think we did this 5 years ago. And at that time, just a little history, the old City Hall had been leased to a couple of different businesses, and the city couldn't quite afford to keep up with the maintenance on it for the low lease amounts we were getting. And the Arts Council came to us and said if we would allow them to use it for a nominal fee, they would take over all maintenance. And I think we see that in the last 5 years that has been a wonderful partnership. The building is in great working condition. It looks good. And we have the Desoto Arts Council located right here in town. So I would recommend that, but I'd like to have Mr. Randy Martin come up and talk if he wishes. And I think you will be the signer on the lease as well.
Thank you very much. The Desoto Arts Council was founded in 1999, and our mission was and still is to increase participation in the arts, integrate art into people's everyday life, and bring people from all walks of life together through the arts. 5 years ago, yesterday, July 19, 2016, a presentation was made to this very same group. I'd like to read what was said. We believe the old City Hall building would be a great location for us. With a focus on quality of life, our mission is to bring art to the community, stimulate with a focus, increase participation in the arts, and advance the community support of the arts. We have many volunteers who help us bring many programs to the public, like Children's Art Camp, Saturday art classes, and Earth Day. We provide a place for artists to show and sell their work in the community. We're a nonprofit and operate with a very limited budget. We do a lot with our dollars. The City Hall location is attractive because it has excellent visibility. We feel like many people would see it. This also helps the DeSoto Arts Council be more accessible to the public. A lot of people don't know where we're located, and we think this would help change that. We're looking for a permanent home and like the option to lease for 5 years. Our plans would be to make improvements to the building to enhance this landmark and make it something we can all be proud of. We're asking the city to consider leasing the property to us for 5 years, and you approve the request. And we thank you. So what have we accomplished in the last 5 years? Here's a partial list. We paid for a total redesign of the building that maintained the character of the original structure and brought it up to standards with a total space of about 1,800 square feet. The building is now ADA compliant and has new electrical, new plumbing, new counters, sink, and toilet. We recaptured the downstairs space, both the bathroom and the old jail cell. If you haven't seen the jail cells down there, you should come down and take a look. You can walk out to the home of the building. We installed new HVAC with new insulation. We added a new back porch and pergola with new fans and a metal roof. We painted the entire building inside and out, added awnings and new light fixtures. We redesigned the interior for use as an art gallery, repaired existing windows, added a back door, beautified the grounds with brick and front patio, and landscaping all around the property. We have grown now to 330 members, including both artists and supporters. We've increased our classes, events, exhibits, expanded the Red Door Market, and created the Hernando Arts Festival. This year it was held on the square, the first event of the summer, and was very successful. Next year we'll be in partnership with the County's Earth Day celebration and the opening of the 2022 Farmers Market. We'll continue our partnership with the Friends of the Vaughn Theater and the annual Blues Jubilee celebration, and our highly successful Kids Summer Art Camp. This year we had 30 some attendees. Our first Friday Back Porch Party has become a place to be the first Friday of the month from May through October, to listen to a variety of music styles, art, partake in a drink, renew old friendships, and meet with folks who share the love of the arts. If you've never been to one of our parties, you should come. The next one is August 6th. It's a Friday, the first Friday of August, from 7 to 9 p.m. In short, we feel the last 5 years have shown that we've been good stewards of your facility and upheld your trust in us. And here we are again to ask for another 5-year lease to support our commitment to the arts in the city of Hernando and all of DeSoto County. We thank you all for what you've done for us, the city. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or anything to say on this topic?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Item 5, under condition of premises, last sentence in that item states that we acknowledge that the property is in need of repairs, improvements, and modifications to bring the property into proper condition for its intended purposes. I think the building I think that's already been done, and I'm of the opinion that statement is from a prior contract,
It is.
and we have any improvements that needed to be made, as it states here, have been made, so that's really not applicable.
Mr. Attorney, I'm looking at you for an answer to that, some guidance.
So this is the prior lease between the parties, the city and the Arts Council. Since it's already been accomplished, it doesn't hurt to leave it in there. Or
That's
you can,
fine.
yeah,
So,
or you can
just for the
strike, or you
record,
can
there
strike
are-
it,
I'm sorry.
or you can strike it, whatever your preference is.
It doesn't trouble me that it's in there. I just wanted clarity around, has the property been brought up to proper condition for its intended purposes as the states? I'm of the opinion that that has happened.
I would agree with that.
I'm Cindy Gordon, also on behalf of the Arts Council. List of improvements, redesign of the building, Irene spoke about ADA compliant, new electrical, buried external electrical, new plumbing, new countersink toilet, recaptured the bottom toilet downstairs, a metal roof, added the back porch, new insulation, HVAC, painted the building, awnings, all new light fixtures, repaired the existing windows. Some of them were not, I guess, safe, sound, secure. Recaptured the downstairs space and landscape and bricked the front and back patio. I mean, basically, we had to kind of bring it up to code you know, for Matt and whoever was inspecting it at the time, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't question that, and that wasn't I didn't mean to put
okay.
you on the spot. I just wanted clarity around the fact, is the building, this work that it talks about has been done,
Yes.
and you just clarified
This
that,
has been
so
done.
And I think we can just put that in the minutes as a matter of record stating that.
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, did we get a motion?
I'm on the opinion that, I'm in agreement, Dr. Harris, that in guidance with our lawyer, that I gotta make a motion to approve it, with that last sentence deleted.
There's a motion and a second to approve the lease with the last sentence in item 5 stricken.
I'll make a second, but haven't.
Yeah. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion passes. We look forward to another great 5 years with the DeSoto Arts Council. Thank y'all for all you do. Item 9 is to purchase a Chevrolet Tahoe from Superior Automotive Group for administrative staff. This was a budgeted item for fiscal year 2021, and it will be bought at the Mississippi State contract price of $37,617.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 10, authorization for Chief Worsham to sign a cooperative agreement with United States DEA and Oxford HIDTA Task Force.
Motion. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Number 12, as y'all will remember, we appointed Stephen Pittman as our city attorney.
Mayor,
Yes. Go ahead.
9/11.
Oh, did I miss number 11? I did, sorry, excuse me. We'll go back to item 11. Authorize the Fire EMS Department to purchase 2 Stryker power loads utilizing grant funds from EMSOF and TCTF, along with budgeted funds for a total of $45,264.84, and there is a sole source letter that's been provided. Does anybody have any questions for the fire chief on that item?
I want to thank the chief for that we delayed that, and a good thing that we did delay it. We got a chance now to get it in the form of a grant, where we didn't have to purchase that out of the funds for the budgeted funds. So thanks for delaying it. With that said, I make a motion to approve. Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Now we will move on to item 12. And we hired the city attorney at our first board meeting, but we did not ratify the engagement letter he had provided to us. So y'all have that in front of you. Do we have a motion to ratify that engagement letter and the terms?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next, item 13, authorize the Parks Department to add a $5 fee for a single class of Zumba. The board has to approve all fees associated with the Parks Department for people to play ball or dance classes or whatever. We do have a fee for a monthly fee for Zumba, but some people just want to come to a class every now and then, so we just need to approve a $5 per class fee for people that just want to show up.
Motion.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is an item that had come up on an agenda prior to many of us being in office to add lighting around the outside of the fitness track at Kirkendall Park. There's a plan that has been given to us by Entergy with some acorn light poles that would be around the outside perimeter of the track, primarily for people using that track early mornings, late nights for general exercise. It's not intended to light the fields. It was just for the tracks. I do notice that when we look back at the minutes, Alderman Miller had just asked for informational purposes for us to get a price on field lighting, true field lighting. So I'd put that in your packet. And so so the idea was that these lights around the perimeter would be about the same cost as we had been spending for people to have to turn on the big lights, which they really didn't need, and people would feel a little safer having those lights as they're walking down low. So there's a drawing in there of where those lights would be. You know, there's been a lot of work done at the track, and we just always get complaints that people want it to feel a little bit safer, look a little nicer, and I think these perimeter lights would do that. There's no upfront cost. Entergy installs them, and we pay a monthly fee.
Oh, okay, that's what I was
That's the
gonna
same
ask.
thing we do with all the street lights around town as well, almost all of them.
Are we going to decide between the two versions?
You have a choice between the two versions.
I do prefer the traditional version over the Acorn.
Any other discussion on that? And those lights will be on the, yeah, on the outside where people won't hit them if they're playing ball on the field. It'll be on the outside of the track. And they'll be on a sensor, so when it gets dark, they come on automatically. Nobody will have to know how to turn them on. They'll just be there.
Do we have an estimate on how long it'll take for them to be installed once we?
I do not have that estimate yet on time. But if y'all approve it, we'll sign it and turn it into Yvonne, and they'll get it under construction. Then I'll know what time we'll have.
Okay.
If there's no discussion, is there a motion? Go ahead, Alderman.
Is there anything we need to do with this football lighting quote for now, or do we just need to take it under consideration at this time, or?
You know, that's up to y'all. I don't know that we have any money in the budget for the football lighting quote. That's a big number there, but at least it gives us something to think about for the future. Alderman Miller, you were starting to say something as well.
Yeah, since we own the football field, is that, I would, ensure that when we do get ready to make final payment and everything, that any damage that's been noted over there prior to, that those corrections be made before any final payment is done. Whoever inspected, I hope they're hearing me. Some damage that was noted to track and lights, scoreboards and things like that, damaged by the people that did the work. And I'm sure that we got a legal attorney over there that will look at that, and that we won't authorize final payment until those things see that have been satisfied. I'm positive of that.
And I will note that I have talked with Vince Malavasi with Neil Schaefer about that very thing, and he is going to make sure that those items are handled by the contractor before he asks us to approve final payment. There's a section of the track that just got damaged pretty good, and that rubber track is not cheap, and the scoreboard got knocked down, so we'll be talking to them about reimbursement for those things. Okay, is there a motion on the lighting issue?
I'll move that we add the traditional lighting around the track.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is to authorize the Parks Department to enter into an agreement with Desoto Football Club to rent the soccer fields for the fall 2021 and spring 2022 season, and authorize me to sign the agreement. And I think y'all have a synopsis of the agreement in front of you.
So I know there's examples of times and days of the week for them to potentially use, but those are not set in stone necessarily. I think we need to have more specificity within this agreement as to what times and days they're going to use to give our Parks Department the ability to schedule for recreational use. I can speak from personal experience in coaching and setting up practice. There's been situations where we've had to split fields at times, and with the competitive teams, which is, you know, a little bit of a detriment, I think, to both programs potentially, right? To them, they're having to pay a premium to use the fields. The recreational side, they're not able to use an entire field to practice on. You know, so I think if we add some specifics in that agreement and really hammer that out, that would be a good addition to this if we can get that worked out by next meeting potentially.
Okay. And we got Mr. Carson from the Parks Department here who's been discussing it. If y'all have any questions for him, he knows a little more of the depth on it.
And I know it's a ton of work, and I know Michael there's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so many fields to work on.
And in the night, don't worry about it.
That's right. Well, then also it's the tough part about it is that you're dealing with daylight savings time, and so in February, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you're going to be limited on what fields you can use. If it rains, then they're not going to be usable. Where there's some fields that would be usable if there was lighting on them. There's just a lot of variables there that I know that you're extremely capable of dealing with and whatnot. But I think if we have it nailed,
Hitting what you said on the head, before we even got into sit down in discussions, I have met with their top people, and 100% they understand that the rec program is going to converge. You were our competitive program. You left. Now our rec kids will have the cream of the crop, because when I scheduling for me in the last 2 years, everybody wants to do there. That's the best night for competitive kids. It's the best night for rec kids. But that's why I set that out. They've always had Sunday, rec kids Sunday. So it opens up Sunday. Tuesday, I did 7:30 to 9 because that will give our rec kids the 6 to 7:15 slot on all fields. And then Wednesday is obviously a day that rec don't want to practice. So doing this leaves rec Monday, Tuesday from 6 to 7:15, and then Thursday and Saturday. I don't know what else you can ask.
right.
That's telling them that we're going to put our people first, but we also are going to be losing a pretty good chunk of revenue to try to maintain this field. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think we can maintain them at the level they are with recreation only. To be honest, it's $7,800 for the last year. That's one thing. We've got probably the nicest soccer complex in the county, I would say, but it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of money to keep it up.
So you're saying you want to put the actual times in the contract we signed with them?
Yeah, just not. Because I think when you have examples, it's just kind of tentative, and we may need to specify. It may be better to specify those. Additionally, I know that this, you already know this, that if there is inclement weather or whatever comes up, and their 2 hours of time on Wednesday gets eaten up, the parents feel like, well, we're paying to use these fields for these 2 hours. When do we get those 2 hours back, right? So the goal is to, and I'm not against this. I'm all for them, using and understand the revenue side of it too. But it's making sure that we're having a good, customer service experience as well, so that they want to come back and say, man, it's better than it's ever been, right? Because we're, approximately we're looking at, 8 hours a week, over 32 weeks out of the year. They're definitely paying a premium to use these fields, so we want to make sure they're getting, their bang for their buck as well. So if there's some kind of clause we can put in there that specifically just says what we do, if there's an act of God that require that the fields can't be used, like these hours are not necessarily made up, or if the fields aren't able to be played on, that the hours be made up later in the week, or however we need to phrase that potentially.
So, Michael, if you
could be up to, as any previous time, it would have to be up to the sports director that does the schedule. I will schedule our rec stuff just like I'll schedule their time frame. And something needs to be in there that it'll have to go through the sports director that's over that program, because you can't put a name on it. I might not be here tomorrow. But it definitely needs to be over who's scheduling. That way it's not, well, we miss Wednesday, we're going to go out on Thursday. We don't know what I have on Thursday.
Right.
So we definitely have to go through the sports director that's over that program.
So if we wait and get you to hammer out the language a little better and bring it back to the next meeting, is that going to be on the timeline where this will still work out?
It'll work out. It's not going to be on the, it won't be on the beginning of August when everybody's going to be cranking up. They have to accept what where we're at, you know.
I think our first
felt like
meeting
I
was-
couldn't put anything in stone because I didn't brought it to you guys to say, yeah, it's something we want to look at. To me, I didn't want to overcross my boundaries as, you know, having conversations saying they're interested is one thing, coming out and saying this is what it is before I even bring it to you guys and say.
Our first meeting's on the 3rd.
So our first meeting's on the 3rd, that's what I was
Yeah.
just looking at, so it'll just be a couple days after the 1st. So if you can sit down with the FC, the football club that's wanting to do this and get the language a little tighter, and then maybe pass it past the attorney, and then bring it back to us on August 3rd. And maybe get it to us before that, so we can maybe pass it around and make sure we're good with it. We'll get it as tight as we can before the board meeting. Okay. So would someone, anybody else want to talk on that topic? If not, Alderman Piper, would you like to make a motion to table it?
But I guess,
Alderman Miller?
I guess what we need, what they need to come back with, this need to come back in the form of a contract. Right now, it's not in the form of a contract, because if it don't come back in the form of a contract, then we'll have to delay it another 2 weeks.
That's right.
So what I'm saying is, whatever the agreement is, run it through the turn and bring it back in the form of a contract, because what we can do, we can amend the language in the contract and then approve it with the amended language. But if we don't have a contract, then we're gonna send it back for 2 more weeks to bring back a contract. So what I'm saying, whatever agreement that we have in, and I think this is enough now to give to our attorney, that he can start working up the contract and then just add different verbiage to the contract. Do y'all agree?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So he can start working from the document that you already got, and then just finish working out the details. Once you have those details, forward them to Mr. Pittman so we can include them into the contract. And then you bring the contract back to us, and if we want to change some verbiage in there, we can do it and still approve it. Trying to save some time, like what you're doing. So he got enough now to work on the contract, what I'm saying. And provide him with the,
We'll get it together.
yeah, that's it.
Who's going to make a motion?
Make a motion to table.
That's second.
Do
There's
we
a-
put a date?
There's a motion and a second to table until our next meeting on August 3rd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes. Number 16, the Mississippi Main Street Association puts on a small conference in Starkville called Destination Downtown. There are a lot of towns they'll be highlighting and speakers that would be relative to things that happen in Hernando or will happen in the future. So I'll put on the agenda to authorize me and any of the alderman persons who want to attend it, and to authorize and pay registration and travel expenses.
Motion to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And if y'all will just get with Jessica if it's something you're going to attend, so she can start working on getting you registered, that would be great. Next is to authorize Thomas Mirth to perform duties as an intern with the City of Hernando. And there is an intern agreement there in front of you. It is basically the same one we had with another intern a few years ago that has just been modified with Thomas's duties and name. And he'll be helping Gia do some work.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
So motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Next is something that I think we're all excited about. Y'all never knew y'all'd be getting excited about asphalt patching machines, did you? So it is to approve the purchase of a refurbished Durapatcher P2 trailer, which is an asphalt patching machine. We do not currently have something like that. We've been using cold mix, which we've all learned just puts a Band-Aid on a problem that doesn't last very long. This machine will work with our people, and Lee has said he's going to get them trained professionally so they know how to use it. So what we'll see is it takes longer with this machine to patch a pothole, but then they don't have to go back to it if it's done properly. So I think it's a really good investment for the maintenance of our roads, and there are two quotes in there, one for a new one and one for a used one, and Mr. Germany's recommending we get the refurbished used one.
Make a motion to approve.
It's a motion.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, did this company supply the trainer since it's their equipment, or will we be getting the trainer from somewhere else?
No, sir, they're gonna come out and bring the trailer out, and they'll train us for 1 to 2 days, however long our guys need it to properly perform the duties.
Will there be any additional costs associated with that, or that part of the contract?
That's part of the contract, it is $500. They label that as a delivery fee, because it's gotta come from all the way from, I think, Dallas, Fort Worth area. So he'll have to drive it out here, and then he'll train us while he's here. But that is included in the price.
Okay.
That's a good question, Alderman Miller, thank you. Okay, we have found out in working with a developing property in a really old building on Highway 51 with Memphis Street behind it. We're requiring that building to have a sprinkler system in it. And once we required that building to have a sprinkler system, we realized the city does not have enough water there to make that happen. And so Joe Lauderdale has gotten us a plan and some quotes together on how to get that water there. Joe, would you like to speak to it for just a minute and get the board up to speed? And to make sure we know what we're getting and how much it's going to improve our firefighting capabilities, et cetera.
Okay. We realized probably, I think it's been about 6 years ago now, that we realized we were short on water supply of the Valley Street, Memphis Street area, 51 area. We did a contract to run a line there from Robinson Street all the way up to Valley Street. And at that time, we didn't have enough money to carry it on to the square. We were supposed to get a grant, remember, to do that. We didn't have enough money to do that part of it. So that still left that area there on Memphis Street that we're talking about here tonight that needs a better water supply. And the mayor asked me to get 2 quotes, what it would take to remedy that situation. We'd have better fire protection flows there and have the sprinkler system water available for this building that wants to develop there between 51 and Memphis Street.
By doing that, are we going to increase the ability to have better pressures on firefighting water for that entire area?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll tie into another line in that area and close this loop that needs to be closed on Memphis Street.
So it's going to benefit more than just this one building.
Benefit that brand new building that's going in right there. Condominiums, I guess, and then Dale Wilson's building there. And Wagner Engineering's building, benefit all those buildings right there, get a lot better water flows.
Is there any other questions?
So for the record, Ms. Lauderdale, that, and we want to make this officially for the record, for something else that might come, that this is a continuation of a project that we already had started on, but we ran out of money and didn't get a chance to complete it. That's the statement for the record, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
So this line is not specifically targeted for a specific business. It targeted to complete some work that we had noted years back that need to be done. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to make those statements part of the record, that this is a continuing what we had started years before. It just didn't start because someone is in a building or someone is building a building, but it is a continuation to improve fire protection and water flow in the older part of Hernando. With that being said, I make a motion to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'd like to just make a comment before.
Yes, sir, Alderman
Second.
Wicker.
Is this money budgeted at all? How do we plan to pay for this?
That's a great question. So this was not a budgeted project. The water budget has $581,000 in a contingency line item. And I would propose that when we amend the budget the one time that we're allowed to before this budget year's over, we would amend that budget to remove this from contingency and put it towards this capital improvement.
There's a big difference between these quotes.
That quote's going to be good that Cleveland gave us though, right? Even though it's a big difference. Okay.
It's I think an estimate of about 31,000, so just a little bit under my estimate.
Okay.
But just, you're saying we have some contingency funds and a utility fund to pay for this?
We do. The current year's budget had $581,000 in contingency in the water department. So when y'all get a budget amendment later on in August, that will be one of the items amended.
I second.
There is a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
It's accepting the low quote, is that in?
That is accepting the low quote.
The low quote,
Yes. Okay. Mr. Lauderdale, you might have to stay. Next, there's been a lot of talk about getting water supply on Green Tea up in the area of Mackinvale for businesses that are coming and may be coming. And we were asking Mr. Lauderdale to go ahead and produce the plans. He put a little plan together. He kind of came up with an estimate, but this motion, if accepted after discussion, would just ask him to actually produce the plans and get bids, because this is over $50,000. You'd have to advertise and do legal bids for this project. That doesn't mean that once the bids came in, the board would be obligated to accept them. We don't have a funding mechanism at the moment. By the time it gets produced and bid, we'll probably be in the new budget year, because it'll probably be after October 1. So that would mean if this is accepted, then y'all would be tasking me and the Public Works Director with finding a way to fund it in the new budget. So Joe, do you want to talk about what we would be getting if in this proposal before our discussion happens?
Virtually, right now, we have virtually no water on Green Tea Road in this area that we're talking about. There's a 2-inch line there that came off the North Mississippi Utilities system, serving from the east. So this really is a dead-end line that's there now. And the 2-inch, only a 2-inch line. So obviously for people building big buildings and need fire protection, it's got to be a lot bigger water line, a lot better supply. So I've got to go back over to the corner of Green Tea and Old Mackinvale and pick up that water line in Hernando Hills and carry it across over on Green Tea Road. So that's basically what I've got to do. Because, get under 2 roads, and of course that's going to run the cost of it anyway. That's the only place I can get the water that's needed for that area at the present time. We'll eventually have some connection coming in from the east as we do some more work to the North Mississippi water systems. So we'll eventually close that loop up.
Can you talk about the difference? You gave us two estimates. One's for 8-inch water lines and one's for 12-inch water lines. Can you talk about estimated future need and what 8-inch might supply and what 12-inch might do for us?
Okay, so 8-inch, let's say we check the water flow at that corner, and it's flowing right now about 750 gallons a minute. So with that number, an 8-inch line would be enough to carry that amount of water. In the future, putting a 12-inch line in there would almost be unlimited for the type of system we got. So that's a thought about it. We're going to spend money on this job. We got to think about, do we go larger than an 8-inch? Go to a 12, but the project will cost twice as much if we go to a 12.
This would have no impact on Madison Lakes. helping us there?
No, we would depend on Madison Lakes probably in the future of helping us finally tie in a loop right there that they're probably gonna have to have up McAbell realignment.
And this would be in addition to the monies that we've talked about to upgrade our water system on Jaybird coming north.
Yes.
No way to bring all that in together under one project, if funding were there?
Well, I finished the plans for the upgrade on the water plant on Jaybird Road, but health department's reviewing that right now. So that part just involves work at the water plant. We haven't really done any line work yet. We've been talking to Madison Lakes about what was going to be their need and how we were going to pay for all that. We never did solve that. We never did come up with answers. How much everybody would contribute to the lines we needed, the water supply that we needed. So I guess this project will have to be separate unless we get to the point where we can put this project with another project if we got a big funding package somehow.
To get water to Madison Lake, since we mentioned it, who would pay for that?
Okay. Madison Lake has a water line by virtue of a line that serves the school. So anything they develop, they'll be responsible for their own lines to their own development.
So we don't have to get any water to them at all. They already have it. Have accessibility to get it.
They have accessibility for a certain amount of development, yes, sir.
Well, aren't they going to be expecting us to help them if we're helping this situation?
Well, this is gonna help them on the north side. This is gonna help several pieces of property, so. It's gonna provide water service on their north side.
Are those several pieces of property, are they willing to contribute to this?
The answer to that, I think we've asked them.
Bottom line is, we need to do this to support the developments that are already taking place, right? Like the field house development.
Field house,
Without this, they don't have water. Correct?
The John Deere place, about that corner, they wouldn't have any water either if they
Right.
started building tomorrow.
Sure.
But they can't put water on site though.
Do what?
They can't put water on site. Correct?
Say that again,
Can they put water on site themselves?
themselves. They'd have to do this same.
That ain't my question. I said, can they legally, can they do it themselves? Or are we responsible for doing it? The reason I'm saying that we got a service that we had not provided to areas already. They've been paying taxes for years. And now we're looking at spending almost $400,000 or something that just started. They hadn't paid now tax. And so, I mean, shouldn't we look at the whole totality of what we had not provided to the rest of the city until we provide now just for 2 or 3 businesses? Because it seems like to me, and I ain't no businessman, I don't own nothing. I'm just a joker that came from Hernando Central School. But I would think if I'm finna spend millions of dollars on a facility, that I would sure know where I'm gonna get my water and sewer from. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but I think people think like that. Unless they were promised that the city would do it. I mean, I'm just kind of stupid like that, because I don't think about spending that kind of money. I think you, the Bible said, before you do anything, you add up the cost. And I could be wrong, but I just think like that.
So has that been a city policy that we haven't done that, or have people just not asked for it, or?
Oh, you didn't ask for it, we just didn't provide it. Because also, there's some, in this law, that if you're not financially able to provide a service at that time, then you don't have to do it until you get financially able. And so now, if we financially able to borrow $400,000 and provide service there, then we should be financially able to give service to the area that we said that we couldn't afford to do. I'm kind of lame, but and I yield to the attorney. That's pretty much correct.
Well, you're really talking politics, and you're talking about what.
No, I'm not talking politics
I don't
now.
think you're obligated to do any of that. It's all what you approve as a board. I mean, I don't think you have to do something retroactively, proactively, just because you didn't do something in the past. Is that what you're asking?
I'm saying that you were legally required to provide service to an area. Legally required. And you delayed providing those service with the caveat that you could not afford to do it. Mayor, you've been on the board. You know, sir.
Well, here's a piece that we may not have, that I may should have talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And this will answer your question, I believe. And Mr. Drumright is here. Mr. Drumright is fully capable and able to put in a well in his own water system there and open his business, but he has offered to participate at a level to be negotiated to help us run a water line that would help everybody.
But you didn't answer my question as it relates to what me and the attorney were talking about. He was talking about us not providing prior service to area that we should have, and we didn't because we told them we were not financially able to do it. And you was part of that. He was serving on the board and also serving as the chief executive officer. And Doc, you part of it too, you're part of it too, especially Green Tea area. I just throw it out for food for thought, you know.
Alderman Miller, I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. Okay, so there's some old stories that you're bringing up. And
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's when I brought that.
I think it's an equity argument that you're making, and it's a policy argument. And so I don't think there's a law that says you have to do this or that I'm aware of. Of course, you know, I can look and find out, but off the top of my head, you're talking more policy as to how this board should equitably treat one business or one development over another.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that there's a statute out there, and I ain't no attorney, but I do know there's a statute out there saying you take somebody into this city and you say you're going to provide them certain services. That's not policy. That's a statute. And you don't provide those services. But then you provide service over him. And your reason for not providing service over him, you say you were not financially able to do it. So if you're financially able to borrow money over him, you all be able to financially borrow money over there.
As far as the legal question,
Yes.
I don't have an answer for you to that right now. I didn't know that was going to be an issue with this question on the agenda. So if it's going to require that type of answer, then I would need time to get that answer for you.
I just brought it up for
Yes,
food
sir.
for thought.
Oh,
Because I didn't know this about this until Friday myself.
yes, sir. And I'm not taking one side or another, as you know, I hope you know that.
I know it's not.
100% respect to you, you know that.
And me neither. I'm just asking a question because I just seen it Friday.
And so I think what we're faced here with is a business that is, Alderman Miller, as you alluded to, they are able to put their own water in. They do have it budgeted, but they offered to the city, if we ran the water line that would affect everybody, he would be willing to contribute some of his money to make that would serve more piece of property than just his. So we kind of have an offer on the table for somebody that would help us put that line in. And we don't know exactly to what extent. That would have to be negotiated with Mr. Drumright. And part of that would be after we get bids or while we're getting bids, so we could figure out. So But I think we just need to discuss if we want him just to go ahead and put in his own deal for water, or if we want to take advantage of an opportunity to possibly provide water to that whole area for other businesses to be able to take advantage of, and homes.
I think another issue we need to talk about, I think Mr. Drumwright's gonna wanna open this business pretty quickly. I think I've heard maybe September or something like that. There is no way we're gonna have this done by September.
Joe, would you answer that question?
You can't even do a process by then.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So
I don't think we could.
it may, just for his business sake, he may wanna go ahead and get his own water going. And maybe we could come back or something, I don't know, after we talk to everybody involved and see if there's gonna be some sharing with some of the other, I know the John Deere business is there, maybe Madison Lakes or something like that.
There's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't ask me about water or sewer. Where's the water? Where's the sewer? Can I get it for my business? Can I get it for 100 lot subdivision? Sometimes we have it there, sometimes we don't.
What's the timeline on when we could get a bid back?
About 2 months. Takes almost 6 weeks to bid. Advertise it. Bids.
So the question is, do we want to pay you for your time to do this when he's going to be opening his business before, or hopefully before we can even get even a bid answer to even consider anything?
There's a whole other issue of how we're gonna pay for it.
That's a whole nother issue as well.
That's a whole nother issue.
You know, we get a great bid, I don't think there's any utility fund money for this one, I don't think, is it?
There is not at the moment. I would think we would have to borrow the money in budget payments in the new budget that will be active October 1.
Yeah, because we're going from one budget year into another, and I know we discussed it's not budgeted for this year for sure,
Certainly not.
so.
And I think to get at Mr. Miller's point is, if we start doing this for this particular part of town, what about maybe Tulane and 69, some of those areas that's gonna need water to develop? And I think the slippery slope to start doing that.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak to this issue? Mr. Drumwright, please.
One of the questions that somebody asked was like financial. I'm prepared to dig a well, you know, and it's expensive. It's going to benefit my business and the other businesses in my area that are on my piece of property. And we can provide enough water pressure to run our fire protection system. There is a 2-inch line there, and the 2-inch line is sufficient to flush toilets. We need the water to run our fire protection system. With that being said, one of our things for the fire protection system that we felt like would be a great partnership with our city is to put the money that we were going to invest in a water system to run our fire protection system and allow that water to be available to the tractor place, any other future development. Because I feel like that's a good partnership and that's a good use of the money that would be used on my project to help just my project. I would be willing to give that money toward the city to help to create an avenue to draw in more tax-producing businesses in an area that is already zoned C2. So, does anybody have any questions for me?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any more discussion points on this topic? If there's no more discussion, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to deny the authorization to provide for bids.
There's a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second to deny. Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call vote?
Alderman Piper.
Aye.
Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderwoman Lynch.
Aye.
Alderman Miller,
Aye.
Alderman Robinson,
No.
Alderman Wicker,
Aye.
Alderwoman Ross.
Aye.
Motion to deny passes. Next is Mr. Jim Kimberlin. On behalf of Kimberlin Incorporated, the owner of the property is requesting approval from the mayor and board to allow the location of two retaining walls, one within the public right-of-way of South Street and the other within the public right-of-way of Ice Plant Lane, to the extent that these streets border his Ice Plant Townhomes development. The subject property, parcel number 3074-1800.3-0031.00, is a 1-acre parcel located on the northeast corner of South Street and Ice Plant Lane in Section 18, Township 3 South, Range 8 West, and is currently zoned PUD, Plan Unit Development. So, BJ, would you like to present this and get this one started for us?
Yes. First off, let me begin by saying, just so that I'm quite plain about this, this is not a planning item. Okay? I prepared a staff report for you all simply to try and help move the item forward, but it is technically not a planning issue. Essentially, just to give you a little background on the situation. Ice Plant Townhomes project is located on the northeast corner of Ice Plant Lane and South Street. The property, apparently in years past, was the site of an old city swimming pool that was eventually done away with. And as part of that doing away with the swimming pool, the property was built up higher than the surrounding properties. And it literally came down almost to the street. In developing the property, as I'm sure you all know, when you develop a piece of property, one of the statutory public improvements that has to be made is to put in place public sidewalks. Ordinance requires that the sidewalks be 5 foot wide, and where they don't tie into existing sidewalks, that they be located at least 5 feet behind the curb. Mr. Kimberlin wound up building the sidewalks directly behind the curb on both South Street and Ice Plant Lane. And although the sidewalk on Ice Plant is 5 foot wide, the one on South Street is only 3 foot wide. He did go to the Planning Commission and sought a variance on those two items, the width of the sidewalk and the location of the sidewalk, and the Planning Commission approved that variance. And that was basically the end of my involvement in the planning department in this matter. As part of that process, however, it did come to light that in order to create a level space for the sidewalks, Mr. Kimberlin had to put in a retaining wall because of the topography of the property. And as, again, part of that issue with the sidewalks, it came to light that the retaining walls are located within the public right-of-way of the two streets. Okay? Now, like any property owner, you know, someone can't come on your property and build something without your permission. Okay? So essentially, that's what the purpose of this item is. Mr. Kimberlin is asking your permission as the property owner. You represent the city, and as the property owner, it's up to you to authorize the location of these retaining walls. Now, as I pointed out in the staff report that I prepared, I see essentially 3 alternatives, to this. One would be to simply accept the retaining walls as public improvements. That then, of course, would make the city responsible for maintaining the retaining walls over time. You also have the option of simply authorizing the construction of a private improvement within the public right-of-way. But of course, you would want to see some kind of agreements signed, preferably with a property owners association, since Mr. Kimberlin will be out of the picture, once he is sold his development, as far as their maintenance of the retaining walls over time. And then finally, of course, as the property owner, you have the authority to tell him to remove the retaining walls and move them outside the public right of way. So that's the report. Unless anyone has any questions, I'm going to get out of here.
I have a question. What if an HOA ends up not being formed? Or what if it is formed and then it dissolves? Then where does the liability go?
Well, in terms of that aspect, it's probably more of a question in mind, but, about all we can do, at this particular point in time, we can make sure that he incorporates the homeowners association. We can make sure that everyone that buys a townhome become part of that homeowners association, and that's where the agreements between the city and the homeowners association come into play. Obviously, there's no way you can predict the future in terms of whether that homeowners association would last or not. My personal belief would be that it would have to stay in existence simply because there are a number of common elements in this townhome development. I included in your staff report just a site plan showing the layout of the various lots and the townhome areas. And as you can see, there's a common driveway that basically provides access to garages in the rear of each one of these townhomes. Well, that's a common element that's going to have to be maintained by all of the homeowners. No one homeowner has responsibility for that whole driveway and access point. So I think it's pretty much going to have to stay in existence for that matter of nothing else. Of course, in terms of maintenance of the retaining wall, and what do you do if somebody doesn't maintain it? Then obviously that becomes a code enforcement matter in terms of the agreement between the city and the homeowner association. But I don't know if I really answered the question. I kind of thrown a lot of things at the wall to see if any of them stick. But that's all I can say on that. Any other questions?
Is there anyone here? Is Mr. Kimberlin here? Oh.
Mayor and Alderman, I'm Rick Swartman on behalf of Kimberlin. To answer your question, I think if I could, one thing that could be done, just like if a homeowner is not cutting the grass, the city also can go cut the grass and enforce a tax or enforce a penalty against that homeowner. Same thing could happen to the occupants of the ice cream property.
Would you like to just speak generally about the request?
Yeah, the request is made in order to develop this property. Mr. Kimberlin proceeded to develop the property in accordance with plans that were drawn and approved prior to Mr. Fitch, I believe, was the previous planner.
Browley.
Mr. Browley.
I'm sorry, Browley, who passed. Mr. Kimberlin said, I have no written documents of that. That's what was said. And he was charged with following the plans of Mr. Lauderdale, who was also the city engineer and also Mr. Kimberlin's private engineer as well. And that's what was constructed. Understand Mr. Lauderdale does not have the authority to provide something that is not owned by him as the city engineer, but that issue can be quickly resolved through the HOA. The HOA can maintain that if it's not accepted as a city improvement. I've been by that property and obviously it looks a lot better developed than it did grown up previously. And plus it being across the street from the old football field, I know there's a lot of citizens over there walking, and this is an improvement to the area. The way it looks now versus the way it looked then.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Sparkman while he's at the podium? Okay, thank you, Mr. Spark. Anybody have any discussion on the topic?
Mr. Sparkman, those different options that was mentioned, and I guess if we was to allow this, we would probably look at option 2. Is that right, correct, Mr. Sparkman? What is it?
That's obviously, I have not seen that, I'm not ready to do that, but that's.
Option 3B?
Yeah, B, yeah.
Yes. I've heard it mentioned either accept as a public improvement or have the HOA.
Because having been in and out of the area all my life, it is definitely an improvement to the area, and the sidewalks are usable the way they are. I mean, the way they, the way they are constructed.
There aren't any sidewalks anywhere else around that, where the
No,
lumber
but I'm just
company
saying-
is or anything
But
else. So, I mean,
those
it's an
ones that-
improvement.
The ones that they are usable, and then plus that'll be
Right.
maintaining while wood stop erosion and everything else over in that area.
That lot's sat there for years. So I think it's definitely an improvement over there.
If I could add something, I was asked to assess any liability to the city for the wall being that close to the street, 3 feet off the street. My research says that there would be no liability to the city if someone maybe had a wreck and hit the wall, something of that nature. I think the city's immune under the Immunity Act, so if that's any help to you.
Thank you.
If we accept this as a public improvement, what is the worst-case scenario the city would incur? I mean, what is the long-term maintenance cost on something like that?
I guess the biggest thing is that we leave it up to, let it be a private improvement, then we won't have to maintain it. Then they'll be responsible for maintaining it. If we do it in other kind of way, then we will be responsible for maintaining. I think that's the biggest difference.
I understand, but I'm saying, it's a brick wall, so what is the maintenance cost on a brick wall?
Well, if it come down, we have to be the one to fix it, put it back up.
Yeah, so what's that cost, I guess, is that $10,000, $500? I
wouldn't be that
don't,
much,
is it even worth the
But I'm just
issue?
saying, we could have zero cost and let them have it.
Could.
Yeah, if you went with item B and just said
Yeah.
we're gonna be held harmless.
That's what I'm saying. You have zero cost whatsoever.
If we're gonna do something where we allow it to stay, I would like to see number B, 3B, be the one, because it does hold us harmless. I would hate to think that, let's just say a car ran into it, we're not worried about them suing us, but it tears up the brick and we gotta replace that brick. That would only be something that was really good for the people living in that building, not for all the taxpayers. So if we do this hold harmless, that would mean if somebody ran into it, they would have to fix it, or get, somebody's car insurance would probably pay for that, but I don't think all the taxpayers need to be responsible for upkeeping that wall.
Let me say, man, I like to make make a motion. Do you have something else on the top?
Yes, sir. If it's transferred to an HOA, let's say they're like, you know what, we don't really like this, we want to do a different design, or we want to do some different, would there be design review at that point? I know that's a
BJ, would you answer that one
crazy
for us?
hypothetical, but
I guess that would transfer to lots of things. Let's just say some building, let's just say it's Walmart. They go through design review, we make them brick the building, and then 5 years later, they want to stucco it on top of the brick.
No, I think that's a very good question. In terms of your Walmart example, obviously you would have to get approval. Just as a simple example, the Walmart in Olive Branch, started out gray, became brown, and then this was all just painted. was painted gray, then it was painted brown, and now it's back to kind of a blue gray color. You know, now, the design review ordinance here in Hernando would require them to come to the city to get approval of those changes, you know, that were happening here. Okay? In terms of the retaining wall issue, I think a lot of it would depend on what it is they're proposing to do. I would think that they would have to at least come to the city, you know, to find out whether they need an approval or not, you know, depending on what's being proposed. I mean, you know, probably the simplest option that you might think of would be, you know, it's obviously going to start out as a certain color of brick. You know, what if they want to come back and paint it white? You know, paint it some other color. You know, obviously, I would think that would have to be approved by the city.
Did that help you, Alderman Piper?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Miller, did you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that it be approved within the criteria of 3B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Sparkman.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Page, would you like to start with item number 22?
Just get the jump up and down all the next few items. This item, and I tell you what, this is one of those ones that you start out with and you think, man, this is going to be so simple, and they don't turn out to be simple. We're talking about a Scrivener's error here, and essentially what has happened is in Crossroads subdivision phase 1, lot 24, on the side property line, the bearing says east when it should have said west. And then because of that error, the width of the property on the front property line reads 88.98 feet when it should be 92. So the board actually approved making this correction to the plat back in May. Or no, I'm sorry, May. No, June. Anyway, that was under the previous board. Well, in order to make the correction at the Chancery Court Clerk's office, you have to take a certified copy of the minutes to the Chancery Court Clerk, you know, and then she'll let you make the change. Well, when we got over there with the certified copy of the minutes, they told us that because the minutes did not reflect the plat book and the page number, they couldn't do it. You know, they couldn't allow the change to be made. Because apparently, if we don't tell them where to find the plat, they're not sure that they can find the right one. Okay? Which kind of stunned me a little bit, because that's like saying that Chancery Court Clerk can't look up their own records. But anyway, so since the minutes had already been approved, we basically have to come back and reapprove this Scrivener's error so that we can include in the minutes the plat book number and the page number. So, just to be sure our new city clerk gets that part, we have to be sure that's in there. So that when we certify these minutes at the next meeting, the gentleman will be able to go and actually make the correction on the plat. So, does anyone have any questions?
If there are no questions, could someone make the proposed motion?
Motion to approve.
There is a motion on the proposed motion that is in writing in front of you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Would you like to move to item number 23, Mr. Page?
All righty. This item is a rezoning. In fact, let me just got through talking about the field house project on Green Tea Road. This is a piece of property that is, I guess you'd say, somewhat adjacent to field house property. It's basically a T-shaped piece of property. If you look at the aerial photograph or the drawings that are in your staff report, you can see it's kind of like a hammerhead almost. And you can see from the aerial photograph, where it adjoins the field house property there, kind of in the back part of the property. The request, this piece of property we're looking at here, it's currently zoned agricultural, and their request is to zone it C2 highway commercial, which is the same zoning as the adjacent field house property. It's being acquired by the field house folks. It's my understanding to provide additional area to expand their business and to provide additional parking. This item, the currently adopted land use plan reflects this as master planned residential low density, where the preferred zoning district is the PUD, Planned Unit Development District. As such, that of course did not, the requested rezoning did not conform to that recommendation. We would also note that the Planning Commission reviewed this at their meeting, and they voted unanimously to recommend denial, with Commissioner Wicker abstaining from the vote. Of course, I have given you proposed motions to approve with appropriate findings, motion to deny with appropriate findings, and of course, you have the option to table any application if you feel that there is information you need to receive or additional time might be needed for consideration of the request. We have provided you with several maps. You also have the zoning map, which is the last picture in your staff report. I would draw your attention to that because, as you can see, we have substantial commercial as you move towards Mackinville Road and the interchange. The square of A agricultural that you see there surrounded by the C2 highway, that's the substation that's out there. So even though it's still zoned to agricultural, it's not really a residential or agricultural use, being electric utility substation. The big question, of course, that you have to kind of look at is, how far down Green Tea do we anticipate going? You can see that everything around the subject property to the north and east is still zoned A agricultural, and of course, south of the property is the Madison Lakes development. So, a lot of things to consider in that respect. So with that, that's my report. Does anyone have some questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Page at the moment? Okay. Mr. Knight, I saw you had wanted to speak on this topic. Would you like to come up now? Okay.
I'll try to make it as brief as possible. A few things I've got photographs here. Unfortunately, I didn't know how many people was here.
It's okay. I can take them and pass them down.
Those right there, and these are duplicate. These are the exact same.
Okay.
These three, unfortunately, I did not get a and these I don't have copies, but this shows my new ditch that
Okay.
this is the, you can see the silt and the mud that comes in on it.
Okay.
This is,
Okay, I'm circulating those pictures back and forth.
and my name's Martin. I lived in Hernando for 55 years. I've lived out of my home on Green Tea, 1658 Green Tea for the last 25 years. Raised both my kids there. Plenty of memories, right? All right, I came in and spoke to the planning commission on the field house property. And they, and it was approved, and they're building it, and these are the photos. This is a year later, and this is what I'm getting out of it. I'm getting a lot of silt, water, and that type of thing. If you look at the photos, and you see my four-wheeler parked up high, that's actually the property line. So they have extended their dirt from probably 25 foot high, maybe 60 foot over onto my property, 60 or 70 foot onto my property, which ensures the water that comes down to form a ditch on my property. I would think that the low spot would be on the property line, which it was flat from the start. That was a pond that we took out, so it was flat. And at least that way I'd have one side of the ditch, and he would have one side of the ditch to maintain, instead of me having both sides of the ditch and now a hillside to try to maintain. Excuse me. So, all right, I did speak with Mr. Lauderdale, and he came out and looked at it, and I do believe there was I gave you a copy of what he had to say on the matter. If you look at the aerial photo, you'll see that's where the pond used to be. It actually shows the pond. And I kind of put you a little pencil mark there where the ditch is now, which is over on me. So I've got a major ditch I'm dealing with right now. And after talking to everyone at the planning commission, I asked to talk to their boss, which that position, I don't know if it's been filled now, but it wasn't filled at the time. So I had no way to go up and really didn't get a whole lot of help from him. So me as I've been here forever, I would think there would be someone I could talk to in this town that I could go and actually get some help, because I don't do this on a daily basis. And there's a lot of citizens in this town and county that we don't do this on a daily basis. So these guys come in, they do it every day. And it's very easy for them to take advantage of us and maybe say something that we don't understand. If y'all can understand that, right? But that being said, I can't imagine what's fixing to go on the other side of me, which the field house is on my east side. So now this that we're talking about right now is well, field house on the west side. This is on the east side and behind me. It's on a house with this deal all the way around. I just hope it, I hope it won't be as bad as the other side that I'm getting on the other side. And hopefully, we don't rush through this thing. Now, let's take time, as you guys are talking about. They don't have water to it. The water run down there. So that there's an issue. Well, it's going to be a larger issue when they start developing on the other side. Right? They're going to have water too. I don't know, long story short, back when I was annexed by the city of Hernando, maybe 15 years ago, probably 10 years ago, I didn't get sewer. I still have a septic tank. I don't have the option to run a line to the street. They said, no, you're not going to get a sewer line. Your taxes are going to double, and you you handle your own waste. And I have. So I don't, I'm, as a citizen and a taxpayer, I'm not gonna throw about throwing $400,000 in on that deal. Just to throw that back on the earlier thing you guys was talking about, I just appreciate your time. Consider what I'm saying. This is my home. I'm not the owner. There's homes on down that road. These are our homes. It's not just a piece of property that somebody's picked up and they're gonna turn it down. I've lived there for 25 years. And the landscape has definitely changed, and I understand. I understand progress, or however you want to say it. I just hope we don't rush through this thing. And maybe we can, as a city, maybe get an inspector or someone that us regular people can come talk to and get some advice on these situations, because we're outmanned. I'm not equipped. I'm ignorant to some of these things that they're going on. I'm learning.
I think I can understand your frustration, and we do not have a city planner on staff right now. Who would be the person you're talking about? We do have a consulting planner. His role was not to manage that department, so you're right. We have no one in place at the moment. So if you need something, please come to me until we get a planner hired.
I definitely will do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm available whenever you need me, and I will listen and try to do the best I can. I want to ask Mr. Lauderdale a couple of questions. So can you describe to us the grading permit process and what you would do if this property is rezoned before any grading starts?
Yes. On this particular property, like the field house, they've turned in a set of plans showing how they're going to grade their property to get their permit. And I do not think the set of plans shows that they're going to use Mr. Knight's property as part of their grading plan. I think that's, when we went out there and looked at it, I think that's obvious that that's what's going on, exactly what he's telling you there. He's concerned about, how the final product's going to be, concerned about how it looks today, and how's the final product going to be.
And as our city engineer, can you get in the middle of that and make sure that's solved?
In the past, when we've run into things like that, we've just gotten to the point that we can't solve it by the time they want to occupy the building. We just have to hold up on occupying the building until a certain situation has been resolved.
Okay. And I have one other question that may be a little off topic, but Mr. Knight brought it up. The field house is going to be connecting to sewer, correct?
Well, they're going to need a pump to connect to a pressure line.
Okay.
That's out.
Is that gonna, so that's not really gonna open up an opportunity yet for Mr. Knight to tie into sewer easily, is it?
Not really.
Okay. I will say, Mr. Knight, that we're gonna be prioritizing as a board. We're gonna be getting some funds through the CARES Act that will probably be used for water and sewer. And I would think this board's gonna weight heavily the people who have been annexed on those projects. That's not a promise, that's just what I feel like is gonna happen. There's gonna be some money out there for those projects.
And just one, like on the field house side, on the property line there, where the ditch is over on me, 60 foot, 70 foot. In my opinion, I mean, I'm just a country guy, right? But if it has to be built up that tall, why don't you put a retaining wall down, and maybe some kind of drain right on the property line? I mean, evidently, they need all that property for parking lot, building, what have you. But when you get to the property line, you have to stop, because, now you're on me. But if it was me, I would put a retaining wall in, and then have the drainage run down on the property line. And that way, as I said earlier, half of it's on me, half of it's on him, even if it is a ditch. At least I don't have both sides of a ditch and, like I said, a slope like that to maintain.
Okay.
I definitely appreciate y'all's time and any consideration you'll
Okay.
give to me, and I appreciate your offer.
Okay. Stay in touch with me. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Drumright?
Yeah,
I feel like you'll want to talk on your project and your.
I will. One of the things that we're excited about in the field house is the popularity amongst the community. One thing that we've had a lot of opportunity to since a lot of the media and stuff that's coming out, we've had a lot of requests for future development, such as other sports teams that would benefit Hernando that currently do not offer through your rec program. One of which is a volleyball program that's going to utilize our facility in the interim that was in a facility in a city to our north and recently it was vacated. They have a girls program and they ran the city program in that city in that building. But since they were no longer allowed to renew their lease, one of the things that they came to us with is they would like to own the right to have their own building as long as they can. So that provides an opportunity for us to expand. Our expansion is not on the 13 acres that I'm asking to have rezoned. However, because of the size and scope of what we're going to add, planning commissions are going to want me to have more parking. And currently, with the way the land sits, the availability for overflow parking by our softball fields is a really good opportunity to do that. And I would like to speak a little bit about Mr. Knight's comment about the water. He has communicated with my dirt guy. When we originally were going to take the pond out, there was a body of water there. So a lot of the water that comes back onto his is actually coming from his property onto ours and back. Now, from the corner of our building, which would be the southeast corner of our building, all of our water is diverted around through its natural path. We're trying our best to try to be as good a neighbor as we can. And one thing Mr. Knight did not mention, he had communicated with my dirt provider, is we offered to put in a pipe. The pipe is on back order. Anybody doing construction, they understand the pipe situation. It's extremely limited, and so one of our thoughts was to conceal a pipe underground, and then we can make a nice mobile grade for both of us. So the area in which he's talking about us grading onto his property, we were actually just trying to fill in his side of the vacated pond so that it would be a maintainable thing. And we haven't done anything with it because originally we were going to fix it and make it smooth and gradable to mow and make it sheet off onto the property in which we've closed on 13 acres that he's referencing, so that his water comes over onto us, back into onto us. So, one of the things that we would like to do is to be an available spot to be able to host rec and other things that would help benefit the parks department as well as a club volleyball program. And we're going to need that property in order to make that work.
Okay. Does anybody have questions of Mr. Drumright or Mr. Knight?
It looks like, and I don't know how accurate this is, it looks like there's an asphalt driveway that comes in from Mr. Ellis's property.
Yeah, and Mr. Ellis has signed an agreement that he understands that the driveway is on his property. But if you look real close to it, that is a 16th section road. It's my understanding from our deceased planning commission that the 16th section road takes a priority to 4 lane. So with that being said, he's agreed, we've had it notarized, he understands his driveway's on our side. Mr. Knight's driveway is on our property as well. We haven't, forced him to move it or anything else. We would like to be a good neighbor. His water meter is on our property. So one of the things that, we try to work with them and work with our neighbors and try to be a good neighbor for that perspective. And I would like to speak a little bit about, I live here. I'm investing my retirement into a facility that I plan on running. So to say that I don't have skin in the game or I'm a developer that's from out of town bringing in, developing and leaving is not an accurate statement.
Anybody on the board like to speak or ask questions?
The pipe that you referenced that you're going to lay, once that,
To carry the water.
that's going to solve the problem for both of you?
Yes, sir.
When will that happen?
It was supposed to have been here almost 6 weeks ago, but
Okay.
I've contacted Mr. Freeman about the fixing it. repairing it. You know, we've got plenty of dirt to repair it, we've got equipment to fix it, we just are waiting for the pipe to come in.
So having said that, once the pipe's in the ground and that's done, does that satisfy you?
And I'm sure it will, other than his dirt that protrudes into my property, 60 or 70 foot. I'm thinking where his property ends, if he could put a retaining wall, or however he needs to stop that dirt at his property, and then the pipe maybe be on the property line, yeah, I'm good with that. And we have talked since then, and I'm good with working with him. This gentleman is a nice gentleman. As far as I know, I have no problems with him. I will go back to the driveway. I did not know my drive was on his property when they purchased the property. We found out after they purchased the property. I've been using that drive for 25 years. When I agreed to take the pond out, we also agreed for you to cut me a new driveway.
Correct.
And I understand that the road's going to be widened, all that's going to change later, and as long as I have an easement on you,
Yeah.
I'm cool, and that's the way it's been, and I'm good with that. But I don't want to get that to get lost in the mix, and all of a sudden you take me the driveway out, and I don't have to drive.
And again, we want to be a good neighbor. I mean, Mr. Knight's property is drastically increased in value, with the addition of the field house to the community. So from a perspective of, we want to be what's best. We're going to do everything we can to be a bright star to the community, not just us.
I'm glad to hear that you guys are trying to work together to solve it, because in similar situations in the past, that's been the best solution. And it's, normally, it can be worked out if you've got good communication like you seem to have. I think you'll get it worked out. So I hope you continue that.
We've discussed since the planning commission meeting that particular thing, and we met out there and we looked at the water and how it's sitting. If I could snap my fingers and make that building finished and graded and sodded and ready to go for everybody, I'd be the first guy to say that.
Any other questions or discussion items?
I'm good. Main thing is when you do start on that, I would love for you guys to give me a call, and I'll just explain to me the property, what's going on.
Sure. I mean, and for what's worth, his communication has been with my dirt contractor. We just recently started communicating, and again, I don't want to be a bad neighbor, and the erosion part is something that I, because of my previous career, have a very extensive knowledge in, and so I can make it to where one road, beautiful grass field.
So maybe if the board does pass this tonight, and when you pull your grading permit and we're getting close, maybe I could facilitate a meeting here at City Hall with the two of you and Joe Lauderdale and your dirt guy. We could make sure everybody's on the same page before we move forward. Okay. Okay. Is there any more discussion or questions from the board? If not, is there a motion on the item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the rezoning. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. Mr. Page, would you like to move to number 24?
Okay. If you would, turn to the last page of your step. This is the currently recorded plat of Crooks. Okay? And you can kind of see at the bottom of the page this piece that sticks down Commerce Street. Right here. Okay. That is where this new lot is being created. It's my understanding that it was the site of the former fuel center for Kroger. And basically they're going to cut that piece off. If you go a couple of pages further back, you'll see this map that has all these pretty colors on it. And essentially, what is in yellow is the new lot 4, and what is in pink is going to remain as part of lot 1. The purpose behind that is one of the strange quirks of our zoning ordinance and our sign regulations, in that in order to maintain their current Kroger sign down on East Commerce Street, it has to stay on their piece of property. So that's why we have that little L-shaped piece in pink. It just reaches down and takes in that sign, and then of course the rest of that yellow piece becomes lot 4. There are no public improvements involved here. Everything that needs to be done, of course, was done as part of the Kroger Center. So basically, Planning Commission reviewed this their last meeting, voted unanimously to recommend it. And we have a proposed motion to approve there at the end of your second. So that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Is there anyone here in the citizenry to speak to it?
My name is Peter Zay, and I'm kind of here by proxy, asked by David Kelly just to be here in case there was any questions.
Okay.
There is a proposed business interested in this site, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And just as a little backstory, the reason for keeping that sign with that property is our ordinance is in place on signage to not allow off-site signs. And there's a reason for that. If we didn't have that ordinance, people could just stick a sign anywhere in town, advertise their business somewhere else in town. So that's why the odd size and keeping that in one parcel. Nobody has any questions? Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Item 25.
Okay. All right. This, on its face, is a fairly simple subdivision application. It's just a little 2-lot subdivision. The property is located on the northeast corner. Seems to be a popular corner. It keeps coming out northeast all the time. But it's the northeast corner of Glen Road and Nesbitt Road. And this property was originally zoned agricultural. And here about 2 months ago, the previous Board of Aldermen approved rezoning it from agricultural to R20. And the applicant's express purpose, in making that rezoning request was because they intended to subdivide it into 2 lots. Now, if you look at the aerial photograph that's included with your packet, you'll see an existing house on kind of the left-hand side of the property. It's actually the north side of the property. That will remain on lot 1. Then lot 2 will become the new corner lot there at the intersection of Glen Road and Nesbitt Road. The property has access to water and sewer. So there's very little in that respect that needs to be done. Because it's less than 4 lots, we can address this in one action rather than doing a separate preliminary plat and a final plat. The big question here, which is probably what makes this a little bit more difficult application, is the fact that, generally speaking, the only zoning district that does not require widening the road and putting in curb gutter and sidewalks is agricultural and agricultural residential. Because this is now zoned R20, the requirement comes into play that the road be improved, and that curb gutter and sidewalks be put in place. Now, the reason that makes this a little bit more complicated of an issue is because, the applicant lives in the house on lot 1, and although they are selling lot 2, it's questionable as to whether or not sufficient revenue would be generated, by that sale to improve both of the roads in that manner. We're talking about adding an additional lane, additional 12 feet of asphalt on both roads, and putting in curb, gutter, and sidewalks on both roads. And this actually is kind of one of the traps, in a way, of small developments like this. Although in this particular case, we're dealing with a sale of that one lot. A lot of times, these 1 and 2 lot subdivisions that we see from time to time are parents subdividing off a lot for the son or daughter. So in those cases, there's not any revenue at all. So, one of the issues that the Planning Commission confronted on this was the question of, do we require the improvements? Do we waive the improvements? Do we waive the improvements on both roads, or one road and not the other? Do we require some improvement, like perhaps requiring the sidewalks be put in place, but not require the other improvements? So obviously, there's a lot of options, available to the board, from one end of requiring all of the improvements on both roads to not requiring improvements at all. The Planning Commission, in their review on July 13th, voted unanimously to recommend approval of this final plat request, subject to the conditions of approval that are specified in your staff report. Further, recommending standard condition of approval number 3 be revised to waive the road and sidewalk improvements on both Glen Road and Nashville Road. So that's the Planning Commission recommendation that was recommended unanimously, and that's my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Is the applicant here, or someone to represent the applicant?
I know the engineer is Ben Smith, but I didn't see him.
I do want to make note that in downtown Nesbit, there's an active application at the Metropolitan Planning Organization for sidewalks to make it walkable in downtown Nesbit. And some of the money was shifted to another project a couple of years ago, but there's still some money there. It's still active. So we're asking the federal government through the MPO to help us make this area more walkable. And at the same time, we're about to waive a sidewalk. Also, Caddy Corner, back across the street, there's a new commercial building that's been built there, and they have not completed their sidewalk, and they're probably going to be coming to you asking for a variance to not complete it. So just keep those things in your mind as you're making this determination. Anybody have any questions or more discussion on it? If not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Yes.
Just as a point of clarification for the staff, Alderman Harris, did that waive improvements on both streets or require improvements?
Do I need to read this whole motion?
He approved it,
I'm
planning
approving.
commission's recommendation.
My motion is to approve the proposed motion as presented in the staff report. and all items listed as part of that proposed motion. So to answer your question, if that's in there, then yes.
Everybody understand that motion they just voted on? Okay, so the motion carries. All right, next is number 26, to approve the utility adjustment docket. Oh, did we not vote yet? Yeah, I think we just said all in favor, aye. And they all said, yeah, the ayes had it. No one voted nay, right? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the utility adjustment docket?
Make a motion to approve the docket.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Item 26 passed. Next is to approve a utility adjustment for Jeremy Williams.
I'll make a motion to approve the adjustment for Mr. Williams.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve that adjustment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes. Next up, before executive session, we will return to the previous consent agenda item I. That is now number 28. Alderman Wicker, would you like to
I'm
start
just not
discussion?
comfortable sending 4 people to that conference. I talked to Mr. Williams. He told me it's going to be approximately $6,000. I'm good with sending one person. I'd make a motion to approve sending one person to the conference from the Park and Rec Department.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? There's a motion on the table.
I would like to, with all due respect, when we do that, I want to make sure that we treat all departments the same. If we're going to limit it as a board, Parks and Rec, pull them out, and look at all other consent agenda items that we did. Multiple people from the same office. I mean, I hope we be consistent, that we don't pull and pluck one area and tell them, all right, you can't go. Or you can limit to one. I mean, let's, you know. I mean, I'm just saying that we got to make sure we be consistent. And I ain't saying we're not. I'm just for the record, that we be consistent.
You're stating your opinion. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Lynch.
I would like the Parks Department to make sure that all 4 of them need to go. Like maybe we could ask them to reassess it and look at it again. Since it is during sports season, like maybe can everybody be out of the office during that time? I don't know if we necessarily need to make a limit, but just have them sort of make sure that it's absolutely necessary for everybody to go.
And I'm sorry that Director Williams wasn't here tonight. I think it was on the consent agenda. We didn't think there would be any discussion, and he is on a vacation that was approved by the previous administration, so the director is not here tonight to speak to it. But we do have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? I'm not hearing a second. If there is no second, that motion dies for lack of a second. Is there another motion?
But like, if you want to limit it, I think, you know, just be consistent. We're going to say 2 people out of the department or something like that, you know, just, you know, kind of be consistent. That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this item to give the Director of Parks, Dwayne Williams, time to address the concerns that have been mentioned and revisit this at our next meeting when Dwayne can be present to explain why he needs all 4 people to go.
Okay.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on that item before we take a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. And that motion passes to be tabled to the next meeting. All right. Can we have a motion to go into closed session to discuss executive session?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. This meeting is now in closed session.